The selfish nature of mankind has been the subject of philosophical and humanitarian studies for centuries, through which attempts are still being made today to examine the innate self-interest that perpetually guides human actions. One historical phenomenon through which selfishness has manifested itself is colonialism, characterized by the domination and exploitation of one social group by another, often from the West. For centuries, languages, in the context of colonialism, have been an extremely powerful and invaluable tool of domination, manipulation and control for major global powers, such as the British colonists who militarized basic English by imposing it on indigenous peoples. The colonists perpetuated their authority over populations they deemed inferior, marginalizing them socially, culturally and linguistically, forcing them to adapt to an intruder now master of a land they just now called home. Intermediaries, namely linguistic mediators, were needed to initiate psychological colonization. The figures of the interpreter and translator were essential to enable the settlers to give a false sense of security to the colonized, making sure from the outset to manipulate their minds and offering them a dialogue devoted solely to control and lacking interest for the well-being or culture, thus an illusory cultural exchange, to bring natives to try to overcome the language barrier and threshold of difference perceived by making them develop a desire to become part of the settlers' social sphere, assimilating the latter's identity and consequently losing their own. As Winston Churchill said, the power to dominate the language of a population offers far greater gains than taking away its provinces and territories or crushing it by exploitation. The empires of the future are the empires of the mind. So, in order for the British colonists to have absolute domination of the most important sectors of Indian society, they had to exploit its best minds, finding themselves obliged to teach English to a small number of workers. In America, on the other hand, from the 19th century onward, so-called boarding schools became widespread, i.e. residential schools built and organized by the government or Christian missionaries with the aim of denigrating the culture of the native Indians, consequently leading them toward a purely Western way of life and thinking. Observing these two cases, one can see how the indoctrination and psychological and physical exploitation of a population is perpetrated through the language of the colonists, who, taking advantage of the social-linguistic vulnerability of the subjugated populations, seize their land and property, thus demonstrating that idioms, if allowed, are a devastating tool of control. A valuable testimony regarding the effects of colonialism on the psyche of the invaded people is that of Ngugi wa Thiong'o, a Kenyan activist and writer whom, in his book Decolonizing the Mind, writes, "The real goal of colonialism was to control the wealth of the people. The most important area of domination was the mental universe of the colonized, the control through culture of how people perceive themselves and their relationship to the world. Economic and political control can never be complete or effective without mental control." Thus, languages played a central role in the exercise of power during the colonial era. But now, in the 21st century, they have become a mediatic tool, synonym of globalization, promoting reasoning and dialogue. This is the effect of modern media and what American director James Cameron has put into practice with his series Avatar. The films in question have led in recent years to the discussion of issues of extreme public interest, including the concept of planetary flight of humans caused by pollution and subsequent death of planet Earth, or issues related to the extinction of animal species. Regarding the analysis of the theme of racism as a remnant of colonialism, on the other hand, one can consider Django Unchained, a film directed by American director Quentin Tarantino. Set in 1858, it tells the story of an African-American former slave named Django, who, having become a bounty hunter, manages to emancipate himself and save his wife from one of America's most powerful landowners. The film, however, not only shows his adventures but also examines the facets of his personality and his experience as a slave, reminding us that even a representation of an ethnicity other than Caucasian can be accurate and more than a mere caricature. In doing so, thanks to cinema, it is now possible to raise awareness among viewers about sensitive issues in need of visibility, while at the same time offering a chance for minorities to be duly represented and celebrated with total respect for their rich culture and history.